Hello YouTube, you're watching Drone Dude, and today I'm going to be bringing you an exciting video comparing the previous DJI Phantom 3 to the brand new DJI Phantom 4. So let's go ahead and get into some of the various differences. So let's start out by discussing some visual differences between the Phantom 3 and the Phantom 4. The first thing you're going to notice about the Phantom 4 is it has a much glossier finish than the matte white finish that the Phantom 3 had, and the same goes with remote controllers. One has a mattish white finish and the new Phantom 4 has a glossy finish. Some other various features: we still have these same motors tilted out to the side to increase stabilization and also aid in descent. Helps the descent of the aircraft to be actually more efficient than if the blades were not angled. One thing you will also notice is that the blades are no longer a twist-on, but they're actually a self-locking system, not like the previous Phantom where you had to actually unscrew the propellers and screw them back on to put them on. These are you literally press on the top and turn, and they are locked in. They actually feel more solid than the Phantom 3. We also have no vents on the top, unlike the Phantom 3, of which did have vents on the top of the body there. And then on the bottom is where we notice most of our differences. So we have a few things to talk about on the bottom here. First, we have what looks like a vented underbelly, followed by the bigger sonic sensors. The Phantom 4 has much larger sonic sensors than the sensors on the Phantom 3. And then the Phantom 3 also only has one camera on the bottom for downward positioning, and this has two. So basically this equates to a much stabler or much more stable hover when you're hovering indoors and especially outdoors as well with GPS and even without GPS. Another thing that is kind of neat is they have integrated the dampening system for the gimbal within the multi-rotor or within the quadcopter itself versus the external gimbal and camera on the Phantom 3. So that's really nice. It just kind of gives the overall look of the multi-rotor a cleaner design, and that really looks good. And then also you'll notice an extra support on the gimbal to increase stabilization, and hopefully that would aid in getting rid of a lot of the tilted horizon issues and various things that the Phantom 3 was known for. Now, of course, with the Phantom 4 we have the obstacle avoidance system. So we have two frontward facing cameras in the front there to aid in forwards obstacle avoidance. But like the Phantom 3, we don't have any on the front or back. And then the battery compartment is similar to the Phantom 3, but it's actually a much more integrated design. So it's actually kind of it flows with the body a little bit more, and the battery is much easier to remove. You simply clamp these two top and bottom little clamps there and pull the battery out, and it's actually much easier than the previous Phantom. Now, there are no orientation stripes on the Phantom 4, which a lot of people were surprised that they didn't put them on there. For me personally, I didn't think they were necessary, and I didn't think they actually helped very much on the Phantom 3 when you were flying. But I guess it was good, when you set it down you knew which was forwards, but that's pretty obvious because the battery's in the back always. And then you do have the orientation lighting, red in the front, and your status lights are in the back as usual. Another good thing to note is that because the dampening system is integrated on this particular version of the Phantom, that means they have made tons of space for the SD card and a micro USB port on the side there for updating. And the SD card is much easier to remove on the Phantom 4 than the Phantom 3 because you don't have to worry about the gimbal and the dampers moving around when you're trying to remove the SD card, so that is definitely an improvement. Kind of overall, I think the Phantom 4 feels a little bit beefier than the Phantom 3. It definitely has a little bit more weight to it, I think, and I mean it definitely is carrying a lot more technology. So it's actually a really improved design. I'm very impressed. But now we're going to go into get into some more of the technical aspects of the comparison between these two models. So now we're going to get into some flight characteristics of these two models. There's some actually good differences and improvements made to the Phantom 4 over the Phantom 3. One is the standard GPS hold mode is a lot slower than the Phantom 3. This was kind of in between fast and slow. You could fly this at 30 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour pretty easily. This you're going to be getting a top speed of around 20-25 miles an hour in the standard GPS mode. But for that very reason, DJI added a sport mode onto this particular Phantom 4, and basically that ramps up the top speed to 45 miles an hour and makes for very fast and responsive flight. I've flown it in the sport mode a little bit, and it is very quick. I would not recommend that for when you are learning to fly, but it still uses GPS hold, which is very nice. The Phantom 4 is much more stable in a holding hover. Even indoors, the sonic sensors work perfectly. I was flying indoors at a gym, and the Phantom literally held its position more stable than the Phantom 3 does, even outdoors. I think the two downward-facing cameras and the two sonic sensors that are much larger than on the Phantom 3 definitely aid in that aspect. One of the best things that they fixed on the Phantom 4 over the Phantom 3 was the yawing axis, or the panning axis of actual flying. So when you turn the quadcopter, the Phantom 4 is actually much more smooth than the Phantom 3. You're able to actually get consistent speed panning shots just using the controls, versus what I noticed with the Phantom 3 was was harder to get a consistent speed pan, making for kind of not necessarily choppy but inconsistent panning footage. So that's another nice improvement over the Phantom 3. They just got that tuned out a bit. So on top of all the flight performance, we now have several more modes that can be activated within the application. And basically these modes pertain to the obstacle avoidance and the ability to track objects optically with the front-facing cameras. So basically what the Phantom does is it has a mode where you can select something on the screen of your iPad, and it will track that thing that you've selected autonomously, and then avoid obstacles while it's tracking that particular object. So we've actually tested it. It's called Active Track, and it actually works extremely well. We've also tested it where we had a person running and it was tracking them, and then they went behind a tree, and of course the Phantom is going to avoid that tree and stop tracking them. So that kind of shows that the obstacle avoidance does work quite well. Not only does it have the active tracking mode, but it also makes the tracking mode when you're tracking an object very, very smooth. It doesn't waste any time doing any unnecessary jerks or anything like that. It tracks the object in a very smooth manner, which is very nice, especially if you're just trying to film yourself or film someone else without putting too much effort into the actual filming aspect. Another thing I haven't had the chance to really test out is what's called tap fly. And basically what you do is you're able to look at the screen on your iPad when you're flying, and you can tap the screen and the Phantom will actually go where you've told it to go by just tapping the screen, which is kind of a neat feature. Would be easy for somebody to learn how to fly that way. But I haven't had a chance to test it yet, so that'll be definitely something I get to test. And of course these modes are not available on the Phantom 3. However, there are still modes that are shared between both of the models, which include the GPS waypoint mode. Basically you fly the route and then the Phantom will copy that route autonomously. Same on both of these models, and you still have the ability to track the remote controller with GPS, and then you also have the ability to do a perfect circle around a certain point that you selected. So all of those features are still on both of these models, so nothing new there. So battery life. The Phantom 4 gets a longer battery life than the Phantom 3. DJI advertises 28 minutes on the Phantom 4 and 23 minutes on the Phantom 3. So that's a good improvement. That's definitely an extra couple shots you can get in one shooting session. With the batteries, we'll go ahead and pull this one out of the Phantom 4. It's actually not much bigger mass-wise. I mean, it's definitely a little bit heavier, but as you can see, both the batteries are very similar. They use the same charging method. However, the charger for the Phantom 3 is actually a little bit easier. Phantom 4 is a little bit easier to use. It just plugs right into the back of the battery versus the Phantom 3, which you have to have the charger going the right way. The charger for the Phantom 4 kind of reminds me of like one of the old Apple chargers. So it works well and it charges quickly. They actually both charge about the same rate, which is impressive because this battery has a lot more capacity to it. So from what I've noticed so far, the cameras on both of these models are essentially the same. However, the Phantom 4 can now shoot 1080p video at 120 frames per second, which is slow motion, or can be converted to slow motion video. The DJI Phantom 4 actually automatically takes that 120 frames per second and slows it down for you, which in my opinion is a little bit annoying because I like to be able to do that in post editing, but it's also nice, if you don't want to do editing, it's already going to be recorded in slow motion. 120 frames per second is going to be super useful for getting action type shots, and yeah, you guys probably saw it in a helicopter video that I either produced before this video or it's going to come out after this video, we'll see. But anyway guys, I'm going to leave you with this short video comparison. We're going to be doing just kind of essentially the same shots with both models, getting good shots in different lightings, and showing you what the actual camera differences are when you're actually recording video. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was informative in some way. If you have any questions about either of the models, please ask in the comments. Obviously, you're going to be paying a lot less for the Phantom 3, and for the price that you can get it now, it's actually a really good deal. But again, you're going to get a lot more technology if you get the Phantom 4, so it's really what your budget is looking at. But anyway guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.